Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the Solar Preparatory School for Girls at James B. Bonham Community Meeting. I am Nancy Bernardino, and I am the outgoing principal. Really excited to welcome you all and invite you throughout the presentation to post your questions. You can post those on a link that you can find on the bond page as well as on Facebook. I just want to start off by saying we just completed an amazing fourth year at Solar Prep for Girls. Definitely didn't end it how we anticipated, but I'm really proud of my staff for stepping up and making sure that our girls receive quality instruction throughout the year. We just finished our culminating Lemonade Day, fourth annual Lemonade Day, where all of our girls got deep into STEAM and were able to really show who we are as at school. So I invite you all to visit us at our website to see a lot of those pictures. But it is now my pleasure to welcome the new principal at Solar Prep for Girls, who will be sharing some words with us, and that's Miss Olivia Santos.
Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be able to be here with you guys today. We are so excited about next year. We've already started working with our new teachers and our existing teachers on writing some curriculum and really thinking outside the box for ways that we can continue to challenge our girls. So we're excited to continue working with all of our girls and to welcome our new girls into our building next year. And our building really is a part of who we are. And everyone who walks in there is just really amazed by it. And so we're really excited to be able to continue to work to showcase this really awesome space. So I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Miguel Solis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Principal Santos. At first, just let me reiterate my thanks. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Dr. Bernardino, thank you so much for your vision and your leadership of Solar Preparatory for the past 4 years. The school that you have built, it's changing the way that Dallas ISD not only is perceived, but the way that Dallas ISD perceives itself and what it can accomplish. So we wish you nothing but the best in your step up and look forward to you sharing your leadership across the district. And Principal Santos, I'm very excited to have you step into this leadership role. I've got an affinity for you because your name is Olivia Santos and my daughter's name is Olivia. So already I know we're going to have a great working relationship just on that. The second thing I want to say after that thanks is to say that, you know, it's pretty clear as we all pay attention to the news, especially right now, that we are operating and living in divided times. It isn't anything new, but when we see what we've seen happen over the past week and a half, it's a stark reminder of how far we have to go to make sure that we can bind the wounds of centuries past. And I say that at a bond meeting for Solar Prep because I want to make it clear, Solar Prep is the future of our community and the future of our country, where kids from all walks of life come together to dream big dreams and to learn about one another and the beauty of diversity. So I just want to encourage all of you at the Solar Prep community to see yourselves as leaders in our community right now, and to spread the word about Solar Prep. The last thing that I'll say is I've got exciting news, and this comes from a lot of behind the scenes work, including, again, leadership from Dr. Bernardino. The board, if I am correct in this, and I think I am this month, is going to be voting to officially name the makerspace at Solar Preparatory School for Girls in honor of our dear friend, who we miss and love, Jennifer Turner. So I'm very excited about that and can't wait to ultimately cast that vote and do all the stuff that we need to do to make sure that Jennifer Turner is remembered for the great person that she was. And so with that, I'm excited to hear more about what's going on with the bond program, and I'll turn it back over to our administrators.
All right, so again, I want to remind everyone to post your questions. You can find that on the link on the bond page, or you can also post them on Facebook Live. So as we will answer those at the end of the presentation, so please make sure you post them there as we go along. And now to kick us off, we have Ernie Ramos, who's with the Architecture Company.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now? I think I was muted. There we go, sorry about that. So what I was saying is the project's been before the board, it's been approved. We have the contractor on board. The contractor is currently making the submittals. He's actually also building a mock-up of some of the windows that we're gonna be replacing. And along with that is ordering the materials that are gonna be needed to complete the renovation project. So what I'll do is we'll get started with the exterior scope of work. So this here is the site plan. So just that everyone knows, all the work related to this project is limited to the original 1920s building. We're not doing anything as part of the addition. It's all to make improvements to the original building. And that starts with the exterior. One of the things we're doing is replacing a lot of the damaged sidewalks along Henderson and also the connecting sidewalks into the building. So we're replacing the sidewalks, we're adding handrails where before there wasn't any. If there is existing railings, we're repairing those, painting those as well. Another thing we're doing is because the original entrance was so prominent, a lot of people seem to think that this is the main entrance to the school. In reality, the main entrance and drop off is part of the addition. So what we're doing is we're adding wayfinding signage to kind of give people a sense of direction as to how they need to get to the front door so they could properly go through the proper security channels to get into the building itself. Along with that, as far as the building's concerned, we're going to be power washing all the exterior masonry. That means all the brick, all the limestone that is there that has just gathered, mud throughout the years. All that is going to be power washed, clean, and then we're going to apply a sealant to hopefully protect it so that it'll stay in that current condition for a few years to come. One thing that you might notice is we're going to build a small shed building over here by where the mechanical chillers are at. And the purpose of that is basically to protect the new water boilers, heaters that we're going to be installing, and that's part of the HVAC improvements. Along with all this, we're also going to be doing some limited landscaping along the main entry here. And the landscaping is going to consist of repairing some of the sod that has been weathered or that is missing. So we're going to come back, plant new grass, as well as plant 4 large cedar elm trees, and then do a couple of perimeter hedges. So same thing, kind of infilling some of the voids that are there now. And this just this is the landscapes rendering. This is the landscape architect's rendering of some of the landscaping. So like I mentioned before, is kind of infilling some of the hedges along the front of the building, coming back with these larger shade trees as well as a couple of crepe myrtles as ornamental trees, and then infilling it with a couple of some ground cover. And when I mean ground cover, it's like tall grasses, a couple of hollies, it's small shrubs. So we move to the first floor. So part of the improvements that we're doing along the exterior is having to do with security. And some of the existing exterior doors currently have card readers to limit the access to staff and employees. But we're taking a step further and also incorporating video cameras. So that way the front office and any administrators will have a live feed of who's at that door. And that way they can also take a step further to validate who's the person actually trying to gain access through that door. In doing so, as part of the building improvements, is we're going to be replacing all the exterior windows. So these windows are the original windows that were part of the building all the way going back to about 1923. These new windows are not going to change the appearance because the goal here is still to maintain the same appearance, but make them more energy efficient. By energy efficient, I mean they'll be double pane, they'll be low E. So it's just kind of an overall improvement to the building. And when we go to the second level, it kind of repeats itself from what we're doing on the first floor. So once again, it's replacing all the exterior windows and also providing a couple of new video cameras in the interior. And that's the corridor where, after doing analysis and a survey of the building, we found there was a couple of blind spots currently right now. So what we're going to do is come back and add a few more additional security cameras in the second level. So once again, administrators have a complete view of the building inside and out. So when we move into the MEP scope, this is one of the big ones. So currently the school receives its heating from a boiler that is housed in the basement of the school. And then that water heats up, it creates steam, which is then delivered to the individual spaces through the use of these wall radiators. We're taking all those out. We're going to replace all that. We're going to put in a new hydronic system that'll still use water in the form of creating heat, but the heat itself will be delivered through the diffusers that are in the ceiling. So both the cold air and the hot air will be coming in through the ceiling, and this will just make for a more comfortable environment because now you don't have the radiant heat being concentrated in a wall and then slowly making itself, spreading across the room. Now the heat is going to be equally dispersed throughout the building, so it'll be more efficient. It'll be more comfortable because in the mornings, if you can imagine on a cold morning, rather than some kids being warm where the other ones are cold, this will equally warm up the building. And I guess I missed on this part here. As part of the exterior work we're doing is we're also going to be providing new lighting. So the existing light fixtures that are there now, those will be replaced with new LED light fixtures. And we're also going to be adding a couple more in areas where now currently there isn't any, and it just creates for some dark areas at night. So this here's a close-up. So this kind of gives you an idea of what is there now. So if you could see these images here, the school itself is it's seen its time. It's been weathered over the times. It's collected a lot of debris built, into the masonry and all that. So we're going to come back, power wash it, and then hopefully restore it to its original status, and then apply that sealant that I talked about earlier, just to protect it for future use. When you look at these windows, like I said, the windows themselves are going to be all replaced with new aluminum low E glass windows. So the overall appearance will remain the same. But when you get up closer, you'll see that it's actually, it's built a little differently because these windows themselves are still made out of wood. So here's a close-up. This is one of the existing, or I guess what used to be the main entrance. So we're power washing these front entry steps. We're also going to be adding a couple of handrails here, just so as parents and children are walking in, it gives them something to grasp, especially during the winter if there's ice or if it's a rainy day. It gives them something to hold on to. This here's an example of some of the damaged sidewalks that are there now that are being replaced. Once again, if you could look at this picture here, you can see how this is also another main entry point. And once again, there's no railings or handrails here, so we're going to come back and add those. A few more examples of the areas that are going to be treated as we power wash and clean up the exterior facades of the building throughout. And when we do that, a lot of these grouts that you see, these grout and joint lines, over time have been held together by everything that the environment has thrown at these walls. So we understand that in power washing and cleaning, it might loosen or create these little cavities. We're going to go back and infill those as well, so that there's no void in any of the brickwork or any of the stone once the whole project is completed. So earlier I talked about the wayfinding signage, and this is an example of it. The bottom, what we're trying to do is kind of tie in the new addition to the existing or to the original school building. So what we've done is created a base that'll be built and consist of brick with stone, but then I'll have a metal blade sign on top of it that kind of ties in to the addition, just to kind of bring some connection between the two buildings. And this here just gives you an isometric view of how these new windows are going to be put together. So before, where these were individual pieces of glass, now we're coming back with a larger pane of glass that'll be sandwiched with the moldings themselves being within the two pieces of glass to create that air barrier. So talking about lighting, this is an example of one existing wall pack that, while it's there, it's not functional. So we're going to come back and replace these with new LED lights. Also, the new light fixtures that we're installing is, while they're going to provide security lighting in the immediate area, they're not going to be glaring and blinding people that are walking on the sidewalks or driving through. That's no longer the point of the lights. The lights themselves are to provide function within the area, but not to glare or blind anyone walking by. Here at the side of the building, this is where the new utility shed is going to go. Like I said, to protect the new boilers that we're adding as part of the heating system. Once again, these existing light poles that are there, these will be painted and new light fixtures will be installed on top of them. The main entry itself, These original lanterns that are on either side of this entrance itself are being replaced, so these will be functional now, no longer just a decorative piece. And this is the existing boiler that is there now. And we can imagine this unit here in the basement, it's what's providing heat for the school. And this itself is going to be replaced and removed. These are an example of some of the radiant heaters that we have there now. So each classroom and space now has one of these units as a means of bringing heat into that space. But these themselves are being replaced with the new system. And that's pretty much it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to submit them by the means.
Okay, so at this time we do have a couple of questions, and I think we're ready to go ahead and answer some of those. So our first question is, when will we know more about COVID-19 prevention protocols? And I'll speak on the campus side. We are awaiting more direction from the district, but know that our student safety is our priority, and we will get that information to all of our community and our parents as soon as we have it. We anticipate that that'll be later this month. There's another question. Will we begin to use the front entrance on Henderson as a primary entrance, school entrance to access the office? No, so the main entrance will remain as it is currently, so accessible off of Manette. That is our main office, and that will continue to be the main entrance. Question 3, will the doors be replaced on the original building?
And that's that we are not replacing the doors. So the doors themselves, the main doors, those white, the white doors, those themselves have already been replaced previously. So those doors themselves are hollow metal doors, and they're not original to the building. And let me, if I go back here, let me zoom in a little bit. So these doors themselves have been replaced. This transom window, which is original, this will be replaced as part of this renovation project.
Dr. Bernardino, on question 1 related to the COVID-19, protocol, my best estimate as to when the district is going to have a more definitive stance on what reentry plans will look like will actually be probably by the end of this month, simply because traditionally the administration and the board take the month of July off. And then when you get back in August, traditionally school begins. So you should expect to hear something from the administration in the coming weeks, would be my guess.
Thank you, Trustee Solis. We do have another question. The question is, will windows be replaced? What will they look like? That's for you, Ernie.
Correct. So all the windows that are part of the original building are being replaced. And like I said, like I mentioned earlier, the appearance is going to be the same from the street. So when you stand in front of the building, you won't be able to tell the difference between the original windows and the new windows. The only difference is going to be in the actual makeup, the construction of the windows themselves, where originally they were wood. We've transitioned over to aluminum. But the overall appearance, the individual panes that you see now, the grid, all that's going to still remain the same.
Okay, and we have a question about timeline. When will work take place on campus?
So like I mentioned earlier, the project's been approved. The permits have all been issued. The contractor right now is currently in the process of actually manufacturing some of these windows. With the shutdown of Corona, the windows themselves were delayed slightly, but they've gotten back on track. And we're hoping to see the first set of windows probably within the next week. Once that first set of window gets on site, the contractor is going to move to replace 1 to 2 bays per day. And what I mean bay is, if you look at this image here, a cluster of 3, this would be considered a bay. This cluster of 2 would be considered a bay. So depending on whether it's 2 windows or 4, they'll replace anywhere from 1 to 2 of those a day. And one of the reasons being is just for security. We don't want to leave any part of the building open and unsecured. So the contractor understands this, and to take advantage of it being summer, that there's no kids in the building to do the swab. Should they get closer to the deadline and he's still not there, then he might add additional crews to get it done. But for the time being, the schedule looks like we're looking at completion the first week of August.
Yes, so our next question is just around that. Will students be displaced during construction? So again, just to echo Mr. Ramos's words, the goal is to be done before we return to school in August. If anything should happen, all construction is happening in the Bonham building. Nothing's happening in the new wing. So we do within the building, think have space to accommodate. Is that right, Mr. Ramos?
That's correct. And like I said, I mean, the HVAC work, which is actually a little bit more intrusive to the classrooms because we're having to replace part of the, remove the ceiling, get in there, install pipes, do some work in the walls, removing the radiators, patching the walls. All that work is going to be taking place, like I said, probably within the next 2 weeks. So while the building is vacant and it's not being used by the kids, is when most of this work is going to be going on. Should any of this work not be completed once the kids start occupying the building, and then depending on the scope of work that is left, it might be barricaded so that the children don't have access to it, or it might take place after hours or even on the weekends. But the whole point is not to displace any of the children using the classrooms and also not to be an interruption during the day when they're receiving instruction.
Okay, we have another question for you, Ernie. Was asbestos or lead used in construction of the original building? If yes, what measures will be in place to prevent exposure when replacing the HVAC and windows?
So I like I said, because of the age of the building, actually, we performed an asbestos test as well as a lead test, and there's no asbestos containing materials in any of the components that we're removing. And should there be a material that is encountered that is not part of the original testing, at that point, the district will test that material itself to make sure that it's not positive for asbestos. Should it be, and then there's proper procedures for abatement to remove that, and like I said, capturing it so that it's not airborne or anything like that.
There's a question, can we run a truncated version real quick?
You mean start all over the presentation?
I am not sure what that question means. I think it's a follow-up to the asbestos or lead. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So I think we are going to go ahead and do the presentation over, Ernie. So if we can go back to the beginning and start just a quick run through.
Okay.
Be helpful for the folks that have joined us late in the presentation.
All right, let me. Okay. All right. So I guess we'll take it from the exterior. So, like I mentioned previously, most of the work in here is concentrated to the exterior, and then the only scope of work really in the interior is going to be HVAC. And when I mean HVAC, it's even more isolated to simply to the heating system. So we're not replacing any of the cold air components. We're only replacing those components used for the delivery of warm air in the heating system. But starting at the exterior in the site is, like I mentioned, is we're going to go in and replace some of the damaged sidewalks that are there now. So if you look at the pink area, that area there is the area that's within the scope. So we're replacing part of the sidewalk that's parallel to Henderson, as well as those parts of the sidewalk that connect the main entries of the original existing building. Second thing we're doing is, along with replacing the sidewalks, is some of the existing railings that are there now. Should they be damaged, those are being replaced. We're repainting all of them. We're also adding additional handrails where there isn't any now for the steps, just to make it a safer process of taking the steps and gaining access to the building. We're going to be power washing the exterior of the building. And what I mean power washing is we're going to clean the stone, the brick, everything that is there now. We're also going to be adding some new wayfinding signage. And that's going to be constant. The signs themselves are going to be, one of them is here over the main entrance, and then one over here in the corner of Henderson and Mammoth Street. And one of the reasons being that is that this used to be the main entrance, but when the addition got added to the school, the new drop off, the main office itself is on the opposite end. And I think now there's still people without knowing, when you Google the address, it takes you to this point here. So this is just a way of telling parents or visitors that if you need access to the building, you need to actually walk around, and knocking on the door is not going to give you access to a front office. So this here is a quick, it's a rendering from the landscape architect. We're going to do some landscape work along the front, and the work is going to consist of infilling some of the weathered areas where the sod, the grass itself, is no longer present. So we're going to come back and add some grass there. We're going to plant these 4 large trees that you see here. These are cedar elm trees. So those will be shade trees. The existing trees that are there now are going to be relocated and planted somewhere else on the site. And then we're going to infill wherever there's voids on the existing hedges around the building, and then also come back and plant some ornamental tall grasses, as well as a few other shrubs along this, what used to be this main entrance. So we get into the first floor a little bit more specific, and like I mentioned earlier, these doors right now that are out to the street currently have card readers. So those are meant to limit the access from the general public. No one walking up to these doors is able to open the doors unless you have a card and you're able to swipe it to get the doors to open. We're taking it a step further and also adding video cameras to them. So anyone that might be a visitor to the school that doesn't know how to gain entrance to the building upon ringing the doorbell, somebody from the main office could have video communication with them and redirect them to where the entrance is. Also as a means of verifying who's trying to gain access to the building from these doors. So in doing work along the exteriors, we're going to replace all the existing windows. Like I said, the appearance is going to be very similar to what you see there now. When you stand on the sidewalk or you drive by, the school building itself won't look any different than what it looks like now. But the windows themselves are energy efficient, and they're completely brand new. So the second level, we continue the exterior scope of work, replacing all the exterior windows. Also along the exterior, doing the power washing. But then on the inside, we're installing additional security cameras in these couple of areas where currently there's a blind spot, and there's not a clear view of some of these corners here. So we're going to go ahead and add additional security cameras. So the MEP scope of work, which is the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, like I mentioned earlier, is limited to the heating system. Currently, the school gets its heat by means of a boiler that is in the basement, and through means of water traveling through pipes, it comes up to these wall radiator heaters that are within each space. So all that existing system is going to be removed completely. The new system is going to deliver the warm air by means of the overhead diffuser. So the same grills that are in the ceiling that deliver the cold air in the summer are also going to deliver the warm air in those winter months. So we're going to have more of a central HVAC system now, where before it was limited to providing and bringing heat into an isolated area and then slowly letting it spread throughout the room. So here's some examples of the current state of the exterior part of the building. These blemishes and stains that you see on the brick, on the stone. This is just 90 years of rain, wind, and everything else that has managed to stick itself to the walls. So the walls themselves, all this will be power washed, and then, like I mentioned, we'll come back and apply a sealant to seal all the porous surfaces of the materials, so that hopefully that prevents it from getting anything like this in the near future. Here's an example of some of the exterior lights that are currently there now that are original to the building but do not work. So we're going to come back and replace these. And these themselves is not replacing the whole fixture itself with something new. We're going to replace the globes. If you notice, the glass is different. We're going to make them the same and make them operational again. But we're going to go ahead and hold on to these original ones just because of the fact that it's original, 90 years old, and you can't really replace this. So it's making these work and replacing whatever parts are needed to get them functional. These steps here shows you kind of where we're going to come back and add some of the handrails, paint some of the existing handrails that are now there now. And this is a little bit a close-up of the existing steps there now. So we'll power wash these, come back and add a few handrails here. And just for safety, we're also going to power wash this area here and then repaint all the existing railings that are there now. This is an example of some of the damaged sidewalk that is there now, completely being replaced. So everything from the front door out to the street, the sidewalk that is damaged is all being replaced. Example of some of, like I said, the existing condition of the sod, the grass, all this is going to be planted with neograss. So additional images of the state of the existing exterior walls. So we'll power wash this, and if you can imagine, this is currently what it kind of looks like. This is what we hope will be the end result once it's been all cleaned. The wayfinding signage. So like I mentioned earlier, the original part of the building is no longer the main part of the building. It's no longer the main entry point. So we're going to go ahead and add this wayfinding signage in two areas. One at the corner of the site, one directly in front of what used to be the main entrance, redirecting all visitors to where the new entry is, so that way they have access to the building. This is an example of one of the existing windows that is there now. So when you look at this, you can see how these windows are put together by the means of individual glass panes. What we're doing, one of the differences that we are going to do is we're going to come back and add a single pane for this. Instead of having the 9 individual pieces, we'll have one big piece, but we'll still have the individual mullions that'll dress up the window and give it the same appearance. So like I mentioned before, when you stand in the sidewalk in the street, the window to the windows will look very similar to what is there now, but the components, the makeup of it are going to be completely different. And these are low efficient windows themselves, low E to make the energy more energy efficient, and also help with the heating and cooling of the building. So part of the exterior work is lighting. Anywhere there's an existing light fixture that is not operational, those are being replaced. And we're also adding additional fixtures in the areas where there isn't any light fixtures now to brighten up any of the dark spots that we might have now. The existing pole lights that are there now, those will remain, but they'll be painted, and then new LED light fixtures will also be installed at the top of them to make it more energy efficient. And this is an example of the boiler in the basement that is being replaced. So this boiler here, like I said, generates heat and it delivers it to the individual classrooms by the means of these wall radiators, which we're going to be removing. So the radiators themselves will be removed. We'll patch up the walls, and the heat will be delivered by the overhead diffusers that are in place now that also function for the cold air conditioning. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to post those questions and hopefully we can answer them.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to go back to our questions. Have a couple of questions on what are the building plans for the middle school grades, and are there plans for additional building construction as solar prep expands through 8th grade? I can speak to the plans for middle school. One of the things that we did this year was reduce the number of sections in our entry grade level. So in the past, we've had 4 sections per grade level, and beginning with this school year, we reduced that to 3. And over time, that will give us the space that we need through 8th grade. We have assessed the building and do have enough rooms to have all of our classes in the existing building. Next year, we will add 6th grade, and so we have a middle school science lab that was built when the new addition was opened, and so we'll have that. And so we're prepped to be able to offer middle school courses next year in 6th grade and beyond that. There's also a question, will there be any changes that will make crossing Henderson Avenue safer during dismissal? So now that we are into the middle school years, and actually starting when we had 3rd graders, we've had a crossing guard, and so we will continue to have a crossing guard to help any walkers that are walking across the street on Henderson. Campus administration can definitely look into additional things that we could do as it relates to folks crossing Henderson. Question about funding. Is there any additional funding to install a baby changing station in the adult bathroom near the cafeteria? And so the only way that I'll know how to answer that, if anyone else wants to jump in, is that at this time, all of the work is specific to the Bonham building. There's no work at this time being done in the new wing. To help, another question, this is regarding HVAC, to help combat COVID in the future, any future plans on adding some type of air filtering system in the school?
Let me, I think someone else is about to speak on this. No. So, Chris, are you on here?
Yes, I'm one here, Ernie. Do you hear me?
Yes. Can you go ahead and, so Chris Sims is a mechanical engineer on the project, and I'll let him just kind of briefly touch a little bit on the air distribution of the building that we're going to be installing.
So I can start off by saying the design of this project occurred before really anyone knew what COVID-19 was. So we didn't factor that in, but we did put in good design practice. There are 3 large air handlers in the room, and they are feed this building, and they each have some kind of filtration on them. They wouldn't have like UV filtration like a hospital would be, but they do have some sort. And the other thing that they have, it will work better in the heating mode, filtering the entire building, since we're distributing the air through them. So it'll work better in that case, in the heating mode, than it does currently. The other thing we're doing is providing outside air to the building. In general, the schools require a lot of outside air, so we replenish the air more than your house or more than an average commercial building does. So there are some steps in. There could be other steps, but there are some in place. And then as far as future funding for it, I don't know what the ISD has planned for that.
Okay, there's another question. Will there be in-school learning for the year 2020, 2021? So we heard from Trustee Solis earlier that district administration is currently working on a plan, and we'll bring that to the board, and we should expect to hear something by the end of the month, so by the end of June. Are there any classrooms going to be built? Is there enough room? No, there's no additional classrooms being built as part of this scope. And at this time, we don't have any plans, or we haven't heard of any plans to do so. We do have enough rooms to fit us through 8th grade with the students that we will be adding in the next couple of years. Does the reduction in student sections from 4 to 3 increase the student to teacher ratio? No, it does not. So every section at Solar is 22 students, which is what's allowed by the state, the maximum, and that is 1 teacher, except in pre-K where we have a teacher assistant. But in K through 6, it's 1 teacher for the 22 students. And so have the class sizes increased? No. So what we did this year, it started with the incoming class. So last year we had 44 pre-K students. This year we only accepted 22 new kinder students, leaving us at 66 students in kindergarten. And we will do that moving forward. Okay, those are all the questions I see on my end. Okay, so we don't have any other questions. I just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you for being involved in our community, and then we're excited about seeing the upgrades that our building is getting, especially with that HVAC. I think it will be a very nice, hopefully more comfortable setting in our Bonham building. So thank you all again for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you.